Well, that there was Andy Robertson talking very loudly, protesting a decision from the referee Sip Kulshoff at training earlier. I was there, and well, it is now 4:30 p.m. in the evening here in Tokyo. The training was at 10:30 in the morning. I've only just about cooled down. It was sweltering, 36, 37 degrees heat. It's about an hour outside of Tokyo, beyond Disneyland Tokyo, and it was at the Dream Factory or something it was called, Dream Fields or something, and I just thought that is definitely getting used in the future. If Liverpool win the league this coming season, I'm definitely going to be saying, oh, it all started at the Dream Field, a mile on from Disneyland Tokyo, where fairy tales are written or something stupid. But there we go, it's warm. It's a beautiful day here in Tokyo, as you can see. I'm in my hotel room with this lovely setting behind me. As you guys know, I always like to do my videos outside if I can, but today I can't face it. But here are 5 things that I learned from watching training today, and it was very interesting. There were some quirky warm-up drills, so let's get into it. I think number 1, Hugo Ekitike, up close and personal. He is a lot bigger than I thought he was. He's a massive lad, honestly, and he looked really sharp today. He was a bit like, he's probably one of the quieter players in terms of vocalness, but he's new. He doesn't really know everyone too well yet, I'd say, in terms of the players that he seemed to be hanging around with. He was the obvious ones. Ibu Konate, obviously the French link there. But obviously I wasn't listening to every word he said, but he seemed to be, laughing along, joking around with the team, and he seemed sharp with his touches and, more importantly, I would say, his finishes. So there was a drill halfway into training where I think it was Sipka Hulshoff was taking about 10 or 11 players on this side of the pitch, and Aaron Briggs was doing set pieces with the other half on this side of the pitch. Down that end was an interesting lineup because it was 10 players. They were all outfielders. It was Kirkes, Van Dijk, Konate, Bradley, Gravenberch, Soboslai, Gakpo, Salah, Ekitike and Wirtz. So maybe that could be a lineup that we see at some point this season, or maybe even tomorrow in the friendly against Yokohama F Marinos in Yokohama, which is about an hour's train from Tokyo again. Obviously could have based myself in Tokyo, but Liverpool themselves are staying just over that way somewhere. It's about a 15-minute walk from where I am, and I'm sure it is a beautiful hotel. Again, maybe not as nice as the one in Hong Kong though, because I've heard from some of the people that were staying there that is the best hotel that they've ever stayed in. But going back to Ekitike, the name of the drill was to sort of, the name of the game, was to sort of work it through the middle, through the lines, break some lines with the passes, and it was a case of Van Dijk or Konate or even Kirkes tucking in a little bit, pumping a ball through the middle into Ekitike, who would chest it down or nicely control it, and Wirtz, so it would be Ekitike coming deep and Wirtz running off him for the finish, or it would be into Wirtz and then it would be out wide to, say, a Conor Bradley, and he would be crossing it for Ekitike to finish, or it would be the two of them sort of coming deep, making space on the wings, exploiting that space, and it would be Salah who finished. So it was just a little bit of shape drill, but if Liverpool score a goal through one of those methods this season, we can all look back and say it was forged on the Field of Dreams or whatever it was called. And speaking of Ekitike and strikers, that brings us on to number 2, which is another striker knocking around this morning, and that was Darwin Nunez. He looked incredible today. Headers, volleys, lovely little one-touch finishes, getting himself about in the one-touch drills as well, sliding into tackles in them drills, nice first touches, he looked every part. The 80, what is it? However much money Liverpool paid for him, he looks brilliant. And he, in the 2 games he's played in pre-season, he's looked brilliant. Obviously, he was injured the other night, but he was looking good today, looking fit, to say the least. And it brings us on to an interesting debate, really. But what happens with Nunez? Now, obviously, if and when Liverpool sign Alexander Isak, then that's sort of, that's the end for Nunez, really. But it is interesting. He has looked good, and from what I hear, he's been training well. He's been almost grateful for the chance to stick around for a bit longer by Liverpool, the chance to prove himself when many had written him off in the fan base and around English football, really. Not just Liverpool fans, but he's a bit of a laughing stock with rival fan bases. But he's looked really sharp, so that it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is he 100% through the door? Or is there a scenario where he stays? Now there's been whispers all summer really about Nunez, but what I would say is there's been a lot of talk about him leaving without any actual stepping up of that process. Now, maybe by the time I put this video out, there will have been a bit of talk about his future, but there was a whisper today that, it seems like he will almost certainly be leaving, but it's not done yet, and it's the 29th of July, but there's only a month for him to sort out his future. So it's not clear cut, and what I would say is Nunez is looking very sharp in the very limited time that I've seen him, to be fair, this pre-season, but it's just a bit of food for thought. Now, number 3 is about Andy Robertson. As we saw in the intro video, he's there laughing. He was also giving Rio Angamoa some stick. He was scoring bicycle kicks in the set-piece drill and running off celebrating like Shearer almost. Although as a Scotsman, I'm sure he's not a Shearer fan. But he's just brilliant to have. I mean, like he was the loudest person on the pitch today from what I could see. And obviously this is only one training session. I'm not there every single day. If I was, I'd have a million times better insight into the way of working. I'd know the team every week and stuff like this. But Robertson's brilliant, and just listening to him it backs up the point that I was saying yesterday. What a leader he is. He needs to stay at the club, whatever happens this summer, just to keeping up the standards in the dressing room, to keep helping people settle in, to bring that light-hearted nature, but also serious when it needs to be. He's a brilliant player to have, and I think he would enrich any squad, even if he's not playing week in, week out. We all know Robertson had his problems last season. It was, he would be first to admit he wasn't at his best, especially, I would say, in the first half of the season. I think he did improve as it went on. And yeah, clearly he's probably lost a yard or two of pace as he's got a bit older. But I don't think it was a disastrous season for Robbo. And as I say, I think he did improve drastically after Christmas. Kirkez has obviously come in. But I would absolutely keep Robbo about for one more year, if not a little 1-year extension as well, because if you let him go next summer, and presuming you let Simicast go at some point too, this time next year you'd be having to buy a replacement left back for Kirkez, which I always think one of the hardest things to do in football is to sign deputies, so to speak, especially when they're not goalkeepers, because who wants to come in and be a second choice at any club, really? Obviously guaranteed trophies at Liverpool, but it's hard. But the point is, Robertson, what a man, what a player. I think he still has a lot to offer to this team. Looks like Salah will be vice captain, but Robbo, brilliant leader, and it was very funny to just watch him up close personally in training today, as it always is. I suppose while we're here, we should just mention, if you've not seen, while we're talking about leadership group, Alisson has left Japan. He's no longer part of the pre-season touring squad. That's because of a personal matter, which will remain private, but we are told that he should be joining back up with the squad when they're back in the UK next week. So they play Yokohama tomorrow night and they fly back overnight. I presume they would have Thursday, well, almost, they'll definitely have Thursday off, maybe Friday too, and then maybe back in training on Saturday or Sunday ahead of that friendly next week. But Alisson should be back for that, so he won't be playing any part in that friendly tomorrow, but I imagine Mamardashvili will play, or at least start. There's obviously Freddie Woodman in reserve if Mamardashvili can't play the whole game as well, which is number 4 of our talking points for today, and that is Florian Wirtz. Now, I mentioned earlier how I kept hearing Robbo and what he was saying. Couldn't actually hear much from Wirtz. He's a very quiet, humble sort of guy, but he was taking corners. He was the central part of the set-piece routines that Aaron Briggs was working on. And I've had people on Twitter saying, why are you telling people about what our set-piece routines are? I was like, I'm at open training. You guys are the fans. You surely want to know. And I don't think that Pep Guardiola is going to be watching my videos and making notes, like that. They were just putting corners into the box. They weren't like doing any wacky routines of, letting it through the legs and, one from the training ground. It was literally as simple as putting corners in. And, I don't think that even if Pep or Arteta or whoever was watching that, I don't think they get anything from it really, other than the fact that Florian Wirtz now takes corners, but they would be able to see that early in the season anyway. So McAllister and Wirtz were the corner takers. They were aiming for that bit on the they were aiming for the front post basically with the outswinger, looking for the flick-ons from a Van Dijk or a Nunez or an Ekitike. Ekitike, as I mentioned earlier, massive, so he's going to be good for set pieces. And they were just going drill after drill after drill, working on the different phases of the set piece. So once one ball was dead, it would get kicked straight back in. They'd work it back out wide. They'd work it to the edge of the box for a shot, or they'd go for the loose ball. And it was interesting. They had the inflatable, what do you call them? Them like sort of inflatable men almost, like they used to be like them things that would go like that, but now they're inflatables. So they were the defenders, and to be fair to them, they made quite a few good blocks. But it was interesting, that whole set piece thing, because they were also working on long throws. So Ryan Gravenberch turned into a prime Rory Delap for a few minutes. Milos Kerkez took some long throws, so did Connor Bradley. But I have to say the best at it was Wataru Endo, the Japan captain. And he came over to chat to a few of the locals who obviously were out there. The place where they were training, I think, is one of the places where the Japan national team train when they're in camp. I think where we were was a bit, maybe their comparison to St George's Park. But Endo, great long throw in him, it has to be said. So I don't know if that was one of the new weapons that Slot was referring to when he said we've got some, but it was funny to watch that. And do you know what? They actually scored some good goals from it. I think Nunez scored a nice header, and they were looking for the flick-ons. But I have to say, they weren't amazing at the long throws. A lot of them were quite loopy. But Endo's were just like, the direct missiles that Delap used to do and caused so much harm. I remember like watching Stoke back in the day, and if Delap had a throw, you'd be in a state of sheer anxiety defending it. So the last sort of point that I noticed from training was just a sheer intensity. I mean, as I mentioned at the top, it was hot. It was 36, 37 degrees where we were just outside of Tokyo. There was no breeze whatsoever. It was direct sunlight into your face, hence the cap, hence the... You can't really tell with the lighting, but I look like a tomato with a ginger beard. But yeah, when we were waiting for them to come out, I walked inside to the building, basically just to scran a bit of aircon because it was so warm. And they were in the gym at the time, and it was down the corridor, and you could hear them shouting like, "Come on, come on!" I presume that's what they were doing anyway. And then the warm-ups, they had medicine balls and they were racing with them and they were proper like sprinting around. There was a good drill that the goalkeepers were doing with Mamadashvili. He'd have a ball in his hand, he'd throw it up in the air, and while it was in the air he'd catch 3 balls and then catch the one he's thrown. But the intensity that they were bringing was just mental. And you saw a clip the other day of Virgil van Dijk saying, like, you have to, if you want to play for Liverpool, you have to play at your best level all the time, train at your best level all the time. And it's one of the things that Slot, as I've mentioned before, has emphasised on this tour. Yes, it is hot. Yes, it is humid. Yes, you're going to be tired with the double sessions and the back-to-back nature and all the touristy stuff they're doing as well, and the commercial side of things that they're doing. But do the hard yards now and it will pay off in the season. And the level that they put in on that pitch today, in a training session, the intensity was mental. Because this t-shirt, like, I put it on because it's like one of them oversized fellas, and I thought, you know, that's going to be a bit less sweaty. Bad colour though, innit? The point is, I was like dripping with sweat. I looked like I'd just come out of the shower, and I was just stood there taking videos to put up on my Twitter that I've edited into this video, and hopefully you've watched and hopefully they're interested. And that's all I was doing. And they were running around for an hour 15. Brilliant level of fitness, brilliant level of intensity, and that's only going to serve them well in the season. Yokohama F. Marinos tomorrow should be an easy win. It's Ange Postecoglou's former team. It's Steve Holland, Gareth Southgate's England assistant. He was there for a bit, but they're not very good. They're quite low down in the J League, so it should be an easy win for Liverpool. But more importantly, will be a good performance, a good workout, and, you know, maybe seeing a few different players, seeing how they look. So I'll be back with another video then. I think we're on day 7 now of these tour diaries. There's not too many to go, but there'll be at least a couple more. So stay with me. Please like and subscribe. Really appreciate the support. Follow on Twitter for the ride, and I'll see you next time. Arigato.